Welcome to TrampWorld. Throughout history, mistakes have not only shaped outcomes but also rewritten the future in ways no one could have predicted. They remind us that human progress isn't a straight line of triumphs but a journey of failures, lessons, and moments of reckoning. And while some mistakes cost little more than an apology, others have cost entire companies, industries, and nations billions of dollars. Consider the Titanic, hailed as the unsinkable ship only to sink on its very first voyage. It wasn't just an iceberg that sealed its fate but human decisions, ignoring warnings, placing blind faith in technology, and underestimating nature. That disaster became more than a maritime tragedy, it became a story of humility and the price of overconfidence. Then think about NASA's Mars Climate Orbiter in 1999. A simple error, one team using metric units and another using imperial, resulted in a $125 million spacecraft being lost in minutes. Years of work gone, not because of a lack of intelligence but because of a lack of communication and trust. It showed the world that even the most advanced organizations can fall when small details are ignored. Look at Yahoo turning down the chance to buy Google for just $1 million. What seemed like playing it safe ended up costing them relevance in the digital revolution. Or Kodak inventing the first digital camera but suppressing it out of fear of losing film sales. Both choices were less about money and more about fear versus courage, fear of change, fear of disruption, fear of stepping into the unknown. And then there's Coca-Cola's new Coke failure in 1985. Taste tests said people liked it better. Data supported the switch. But what the company missed was the emotional bond people had with tradition. They forgot that humans aren't just numbers on a chart, they're stories, memories, and connections. When Coca-Cola finally admitted their mistake and returned to the original formula, it was humility that rebuilt trust. What ties all these stories together is not just the loss of money but the human lessons underneath. They remind us that courage often lies in listening to voices we want to ignore. That humility has the power to repair what arrogance destroys. And that innovation is not about avoiding risk but about stepping into it with curiosity and vulnerability. Lessons from billion-dollar mistakes are not reserved for boardrooms or history books. They are lessons for all of us. When we avoid change out of fear, when we silence creativity, when we put ego above connection, we too risk losing something priceless. But when we choose to learn from failure, admit our missteps, and lean into courage, we open the door to resilience, growth, and deeper human connection. Because at the end of the day, the real cost of mistakes isn't the money lost, it's the lessons ignored. Do you want me to also create the YouTube package, title, description, tags, timestamps, hashtags, etc., for this speech like I did for your earlier topics? Mistakes are an inseparable part of human history because they remind us that progress has never been a perfect straight line. It has always been shaped by trial and error, by bold risks, and by missteps that taught us more than success ever could. But some mistakes go beyond being simple lessons. They come with a cost so massive that they alter the course of industries, economies, and even societies. These billion-dollar mistakes are not only about money lost, they are about opportunities missed, innovation stifled, and trust broken. They remind us that the smallest of decisions, whether rooted in overconfidence, fear, or neglect, can grow into monumental turning points that rewrite the future. When we look back at these mistakes, we don't just see errors in judgment, we see mirrors reflecting the fragile balance between ambition and humility, between vision and caution, and between playing safe and daring to embrace the unknown. Failure is often rooted in overconfidence, fear, or ignoring uncomfortable truths, because when leaders and organizations begin to believe they are invincible, they stop asking the hard questions and stop listening to voices that challenge their assumptions. Overconfidence convinces us that success will last forever. Fear keeps us clinging to what feels familiar even when the world around us is shifting, and ignoring uncomfortable truths allows warning signs to pile up until they can no longer be contained. History shows us that it is rarely the lack of resources or intelligence that causes billion-dollar failures. It is the unwillingness to confront reality, to admit vulnerability, and to adapt before it is too late. The pattern repeats itself in boardrooms, governments, and even in our personal lives. The greatest cost of failure is not always the money lost but the trust broken, the innovation delayed, and the realization that courage to face the truth came too late. Stories like Titanic, NASA's Mars orbiter, Yahoo, and Kodak remind us that small Decisions can create massive ripple effects because what often seems like a minor choice in the moment can unfold into consequences that reshape industries and lives forever. The Titanic's lack of lifeboats was seen as a small oversight, but it became a factor in one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. NASA's Mars orbiter was lost to something as simple as a unit conversion error, yet that mistake cost $125 million and years of effort. Yahoo's decision to pass on buying Google for just $1 million looked insignificant at the time, but it allowed another company to dominate the digital world, and Kodak's choice to hide the digital camera to protect film sales seemed like a reasonable business move, yet it eventually pushed the company into decline. Each of these examples shows us that decisions do not exist in isolation, they ripple outward, shaping futures in ways we cannot always predict, and they remind us that humility, foresight, and courage in small moments are often what determine long-term survival and success. Vulnerability and humility are not signs of weakness but the foundation for recovery and resilience, because when mistakes happen the instinct is often to hide them, deny them, or pretend they never occurred. Yet history shows us that the organizations and leaders who recover are the ones who dare to be open about their failures and humble enough to admit what went wrong. Vulnerability allows us to face the truth without excuses. It creates space for honesty, dialogue, and learning, and humility keeps us grounded, reminding us that no one, no matter how powerful or successful, is immune to error. When Coca-Cola admitted their mistake with New Coke, it wasn't numbers or marketing that brought people back, it was the honesty to say we got it wrong. When leaders stand in their humanity rather than their pride, they build trust, and resilience grows not in the absence of mistakes but in the courage to acknowledge them, adapt, and continue forward stronger than before. Playing safe can sometimes be riskier than being bold and embracing innovation, because the world does not stand still. Industries evolve, technology advances, and expectations shift. What feels safe today can quickly become obsolete tomorrow. Kodak believed protecting film sales was the safe choice, but by resisting digital innovation they put themselves on a path to irrelevance. Yahoo thought rejecting Google was avoiding unnecessary risk, but that safe choice cost them. True leadership is about listening to uncomfortable voices and seeing value in what's not yet obvious, because the future rarely announces itself in ways that feel easy, predictable, or universally accepted. Often it comes. Billion-dollar mistakes carry priceless lessons about courage, adaptability, and human connection, because while the losses may be measured in money, the real impact is written in the stories of what was ignored, what was feared, and what was left behind. These mistakes reveal that progress is never guaranteed, and that arrogance or hesitation can undo even the strongest institutions. Yet within every failure lies the opportunity to learn, to rebuild, and to reconnect with the very values that sustain innovation and trust. Courage is needed to admit when things go wrong. Adaptability is essential to change course when the path ahead is uncertain, and human connection reminds us that every decision affects lives, communities, and futures beyond balance sheets. In the end, the most expensive errors in history are not just cautionary tales of what not to do, they are reminders of how much stronger, wiser, and more connected we can become when we allow failure to teach us instead of define us. In the end, these billion-dollar mistakes are not just stories about money lost or opportunities missed, they are reflections of what it means to be human. They show us that arrogance, fear, and ignoring the truth can bring down even the mightiest, while humility, vulnerability, and courage can rebuild trust and spark resilience. When we study the Titanic, NASA's Mars orbiter, Yahoo, Kodak, and countless others, we see that failure is not the opposite of success but a part of it. The question is not whether we will make mistakes but how we will respond when we do. True leadership and meaningful progress come from facing failure with open eyes, owning the lessons it brings, and daring to keep moving forward with wisdom and connection intact.